Good night. Sweet dreams. That's what my dad would say to me. But sometimes I had trouble falling asleep. Then he would tell me stories about his travels. I want this tradition to live on. So now, let me share my stories with you. The late morning sun has not yet climbed high enough to send its rays into every corner of the alley. The whitewashed facades to my left glow like the overexposed patches of a photograph. On the right, everything still lies in cool shadow. Slowly, almost cautiously, I walk through the narrow passage between the houses. I balance along the fine line between light and shade, between the freshness of the morning and the approaching heat of a summer day in the Aegean. The alley is so narrow that I could touch both walls at once if I stretched out my arms. At one of the houses, a pale blue shutter stands open. Behind it, a cat stretches lazily in the half-shadow. The plaster on the wall is no longer fresh, but that is precisely what makes it beautiful, like a crease in an old smile. I'm in Chora, the small capital of Amorgos, if one can even call it that. There is no trace here of the bustle of an urban center. Instead of multi-lane streets and traffic lights, Chora offers narrow, winding alleys through which hardly even a moped can pass. Only around 400 people live in this small place. Amorgos itself lies far out in the Aegean, east of the better-known Cycladic islands. With just over 30 kilometers in length and not even 2 kilometers at its narrowest point, the island is little more than a slender strip of land in a vast blue expanse. The alley opens into a slightly wider street. It winds its way through the heart of Chora, sometimes a little more open, then narrow again, yet always alive with a quiet, unhurried activity. White walls alternate with doors and shutters painted in that unmistakable Cycladic blue, as if someone had brushed the sea itself onto the wood. In between, pastel-colored bougainvillea blossoms flash into view, climbing here and there over balconies. They appear like casually placed brushstrokes in an impressionist painting. An old man sits on a stool in the shade of his shop, threading beads onto a string with remarkable calm. I pause briefly and watch as the colors of the small spheres shift in the light. He lifts his eyes. I nod to him, and he responds with a barely visible, thin smile, not out of unfriendliness, but because no unnecessary words are spoken here. A few steps further on, soft music drifts out of a cafe. 2 cats lie curled up asleep on a wooden platform in front of a shop. Ceramic bowls and small bottles of olive oil are sold here. A woman sweeps the dust in front of her door, gathering it from between the stones as if it were her daily contribution to the order of the world. A faint scent of wild herbs, Greek oregano and thyme, hangs in the air, as it does everywhere on Amorgos. I reach a taverna that leans slightly into a curve, looking as though it has not been disturbed in the last 30 or 40 summers. The Greek letters on the sign above the entrance are barely legible. The chairs around the small round tables do not match. I barely hesitate before stepping inside. In one corner, a fan hums lazily. I am the only guest. Besides me, there's an older woman who appears to own the place. Without fuss, she sets a tray down in front of me, green and black olives in a small clay bowl, some still with pits, others stuffed with cloves of garlic. Next to them, a plate of thick tomato slices, topped with crumbled feta and fresh oregano. A small bowl of tzatziki, a few slices of toasted bread that cracks softly when broken, and 4 stuffed vine leaves. Everything is simple and fresh and smells inviting. I take my time. Every bite carries the sun, the salt, and the herbs of the island. This is how all life should be. After the meal and a long, digestion-friendly pause, I set off on foot toward my special destination. From Chora, the road leads gently downhill before turning into a narrow path that winds through the sun-baked rock in wide switchbacks. With every step, gravel crunches beneath my soles. The sun now stands much higher, but a light breeze cools my forehead and makes the sleeves of my loose linen shirt flutter. Around me, the landscape stretches out. Amorgos reveals a stark beauty. The rocky ground is crisscrossed by dusty paths and gray-green shrubs that stubbornly hold their ground in the dry terrain. The scent of wild thyme and other herbs linger in the air, like they're the island's aromatic fingerprint. Knee-high walls, made of loosely stacked natural stone, draw long, narrow lines across the landscape. Their purpose is not entirely clear to me. Perhaps they once served agriculture. Perhaps they marked the grazing areas for goats, which are said to be everywhere here, though I have not seen any yet. Or perhaps they simply keep the soil in place. From time to time, a lizard darts across the path in front of me. My presence, as a giant on 2 legs, does not seem to trouble them much. I hardly see any birds, but I hear their calls echoing through the hills. The air is so clear and clean, you can tell you're deep in the Mediterranean Sea. Apart from myself, there does not seem to be another soul for miles. The path I follow is little more than a line through the landscape, so narrow that 2 people could hardly walk side by side. I stop and look around. The Aegean lies deep and calm below me, framed by rugged cliffs. The turquoise water stretches out in a darkening gradient toward the horizon. In a few places, white crests of waves flash briefly before disappearing again into the vastness of the sea. Slowly, my gaze moves back along the coastline to the stony slopes of Amorgos. Twisted bushes with gnarled wooden stems grow along terraces that people once struggled to build from the dry land here. On a rocky outcrop, high above the path, a single goat suddenly stands. That wasn't there a moment ago, was it? Backlit by the afternoon sun, the animal's slender body looks almost like a drawing, black against the light. The goat does not move. Its hooves rest on a narrow ridge in the rock that offers hardly any space. My feet would find no hold there, and yet it stands there confidently, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Well, I guess it is. I watch its gaze wander over Amorgos too. Before I continue, I raise my hand slightly. The goat leaves my gesture unanswered. How rude! The path now leads over one final crest, behind which my destination appears. The Monastery of Panagia Chozoviotissa. White and slender, like a thought set into the rock, the Greek Orthodox monastery rests high above the shimmering waters of the Aegean. At about 300 meters above the sea, it clings to the nearly vertical cliff face. With its smooth, whitewashed limestone facade, it is the only sign of human presence for miles, and looks almost as if someone had forgotten it here. Narrow, slit-like windows break through the white surface, like breathing holes in a wall that offers little protection from the weather. The entire structure is so slim that from a distance it appears more like a white crack in the rock. The monastery rises 8 stories high, yet is barely 5 meters wide. It was built in the 11th century. According to legend, an icon of the Virgin Mary miraculously arrived here on the coast of Amorgos. It depicts the face of the Virgin Mary, Panagia, and the Christ child. The monks saw this as a sign and built this house of faith in this inaccessible place. Easier said than done, I think, as if the monks had simply decided to build it here, as one might decide anything else, gather a few stones, lay a foundation, raise some walls. But as I look at the building, clinging with stoic grace to the cliff, I cannot even begin to imagine how that could have been possible. I see only rock dropping steeply downward, and I can feel the chilly wind that whistles up and brushes against my skin. And yet, there it stands. A whitewashed structure over 40 meters high, so narrow that even the idea of a staircase inside seems out of place. The monastery feels conjured, as though it had not been built but simply spoken into existence. It stands as if it had written itself into the rock, a monolith of silence in a world visited by little more than goats, lizards, and a couple of people. I remain for a moment, quiet, before walking toward the narrow doorway that barely stands out from the rock and go inside. As I cross the threshold, it feels as though someone draws a heavy curtain between me and the world outside. A cool, gentle stillness welcomes me. The air smells of wax and stone. My footsteps echo softly over the worn floor. A monk in a black robe with a dense gray beard nods to me. His calm gaze reveals that he left all haste behind long ago. Without a word, he hands me a small glass of racomelo, a local version of raki with honey and spices, both sweet and sharp. Raki is a strong alcoholic spirit made in Eastern Europe or the Middle East. I drink slowly. The sip opens a quiet space within my chest. The monk gestures toward a low stone staircase. I follow him, bending again and again where the ceilings are very low. Although everything here is narrow, the steps, the corridors, the dark wooden doors, I do not feel confined. Instead, something within me grows quieter and calmer the deeper I follow him into the building. The carousel of thoughts from the modern world gradually stops. It is as if this place makes those endless circles of thinking simply unnecessary. There is no noise here to contend with, only silence slowly unfolding. In a small chamber behind thick walls, candles flicker before the icon. The dancing light falls softly on the gold, which glows back in muted tones. Someone has laid flowers there, and the sweet, resinous scent of incense lingers in the air. The monk withdraws quietly and respectfully. The image stands in a narrow niche set directly into the wall, and yet it feels as though it has all the space in the world. I look into the golden face of the Virgin. Our gazes meet, and for a moment we share the certainty of how soothing the silence of this place is, and that some things need no words. When I leave the monastery again and step out into the warm light of early evening, even the wind seems quieter. The world around me, Amorgos in its stark beauty, feels as though it is moving at half speed. I take a deep breath in and out and begin the return to Chora, balanced and calm, as if I had spent weeks in the monastery. Ahead of me, the land slopes gently down toward the sea. In the distance, the Aegean glitters in golden hour light. The sun hangs low, its rays like warm fingers brushing over rocks, shrubs, and old walls. Everything feels softer now. The day has traded its edges for long, stretched shadows. Behind me, high above the coast, the monastery clings to the rock. But I am thinking of the goat, of the narrow ridge on which it stood so effortlessly. It needs very little space to remain perfectly balanced. I wonder how much physical space a person truly needs. On Amorgos, the vastness of sea and landscape meets the narrow conditions in which people have made their lives. The roads and paths are all single lane. Most doorways require me to lower my head as I pass through, and yet I have rarely felt so grounded, so centered as I do here on this easternmost of the Cyclades. Perhaps, I think, it is sometimes better not to spread oneself too wide, not to always want to grasp and possess everything. The sun now touches the sea. For a moment, the horizon seems to glow. Thousands of tiny flames appear to burn on the waves until slowly the moonlight of the night settles over the island. Late at night, I lie in my room in Chora. The small window is open, and a gentle breeze drifts through the blue wooden shutters. Hardly a sound comes in from outside. I hear only the soft chirping of crickets, and now and then the faintest stir of air moving through the room. I close my eyes. The barren slopes, the narrow paths, the golden light, all of it passes before me once more, as if my day were a film running backward in quiet, atmospheric images. I think of the monastery, of the stairs, of the silence. I remember the monk, the candlelight, the cool stone beneath my feet, the sea far below, blue and still in the afternoon haze. Somewhere out there, the goat may still be standing on its rocky ridge, with its unmatched sense of space and balance. It remains on its narrow ledge. It needs nothing and wants nothing that Amorgos cannot give. A little rock, a little wind, a place to stand between earth and sky. I pull the blanket up to my chin and turn onto my side. My breathing slows. My body grows heavy. No thought insists on being followed. The island has become very quiet around me, as if even the white houses, the old paths, and the moonlit hills are settling in for the night. Only one final sentence comes to mind. How little one truly needs to be completely at peace. And with that thought resting softly beside me, like the breeze at the window, I let the day fade slowly, gently into sleep.